Scott Bolden is the chair of the National Bar Association's Political Action Committee. He supports the NFL players protesting the flag, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Bolden, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So what would the reaction be from all the wise people on television if players were protesting the Mexican flag?
Okay, but,
or the Mexican... No, I'm serious. They would be denounced.
Okay, I got you. But your premise was the American flag or the Mexican flag, in my opinion, in my legal opinion, it's just all wrong and misguided. These players are not protesting the soldiers, the anthem, or the flag. They're protesting police brutality, social injustice, and America's reaction to it, and the fact that it persists. Now, if you don't believe
how do you
that...
know that?
Yeah, I know that because...
They haven't said that.
Well, they certainly have said that.
No, they haven't.
They've
You've
said that
seen
repeatedly.
The majority of many teams. I was at the game on Sunday night, and the Raiders, almost every single player, sat for the national anthem.
Absolutely.
And sat as the colors were presented. And not one of them gave a speech there or on Twitter.
Nor were they before a game.
So all I know is I watched this or after the game. They didn't explain themselves. They protested the American flag and the singing of the national anthem.
That's not true.
Well, I watched it.
They love the flag, and they love this country, and they love the U.S. Constitution as much as possible.
How do you know?
Because I've listened to them. I've listened to them.
Most of these guys have said not one word about it.
Now, them linking arms with the owners and showing unity, Donald Trump drove that narrative because he thought that he wanted them fired. What happened is even his buddies who own teams linked arms with those black and brown ball players.
Well, that is true.
He drove that.
And the white ball players. I mean, look, it's not necessarily... Look, I saw a ton of white players sitting out the national anthem on Sunday night.
Exactly.
This is not an inherently racial issue. I'm sorry, it's just not. I mean, there are white players, white owners doing the same thing.
If they're supporting black players, and those black players, whether it's Colin Kaepernick or someone else, they're protesting social injustice and police brutality and the fact that it's not been addressed by this president and others.
Then how about this? Okay, why not say that? These are some of the most powerful people in our society. They have the loudest possible megaphone. They can tell us what they think.
Well, Tucker, they do say that.
Why are
You're not listening to them. They do say that.
I'm in the news business, man. I'm listening
clearly
very
you're not
carefully.
listening to it if you don't think that's what they're protesting.
But why not just say it? Why pick our national... Because here's the truth. We fly the flag, we sing the anthem, we do all these silly civic rituals because we don't have a lot in common otherwise as Americans. We're not... millennia old.
Issue.
No, it's the issue. When you start attacking national symbols, it raises the obvious question, which is, why are we all united as one? What do we have in common? I'm serious.
But see, your premise is fundamental. We're never going to agree on this issue or this interplay.
Well, but your position doesn't make any sense. Why sit for the national anthem if it has nothing to do with the national anthem, with the national symbol? Why not write a piece or give a speech and say, I'm mad about police brutality? In which case, I would, and I mean it, I would say that's a fair thing to be mad about.
You can't define how I exercise my First Amendment or these players do.
I'm not seeking to define.
Well, you are. If you tell me I can't protest while the anthem is playing, then you're telling me when, where, and how I can protest. And those soldiers fought for my right to do that.
Come on, don't even go down that. That's beneath you.
It's a fair path. It's not beneath you. No, it isn't.
I am not. By the way, night after night, I defend the First Amendment free expression against attempts by the left.
Except these ball players.
But I'm not attacking their right to do that. That's wrong.
Okay, so
I'm not doing
that.
Then.
So they
that goes without saying.
Right, so I don't have to
I stated it. And
I don't have to stand for the national anthem then, right?
Of course you don't have to stand for the national anthem.
So why are you criticizing them?
But you should.
Oh,
you shouldn't scream.
No,
it's the same issue. I'm not arguing that the government should intervene. I'm arguing that decent people should behave a certain way. And if you care about this country, you should express it by the way you behave in public, especially if you're famous.
Well, let me ask you this.
That's what I'm saying.
Let me ask you this. If I were to stand and do jumping jacks during the national anthem, would you find that disrespectful? If I was to raise my fist and stand, would you find that disrespectful?
I would. Because I would.
Really?
I'll tell you why. Because it's intended that way. They're waging an attack on the idea of America that is illegitimate and fundamentally corrupt. And my point is that, well, that should be legal and is protected by the First Amendment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I hope you're out. I hope that you're out defending Milo and the rest.
Country, right? This is an imperfect country.
It's an imperfect
Police
country.
brutalize young black and brown men.
And white
social
men,
injustice. They do.
Yeah, they do.
Well, let me give you a statistic. Almost every African American in this country has a bad experience report about the police.
But I'm not contesting
When they call the police, they're not protecting and serving. They're doing a lot more than that.
Look, I actually think that's a valid conversation to have, and I've said it many times in this show. And I'm one of the only conservatives I know who's willing to say, you know, I think police brutality is something that we should discuss.
And protests
but they're
are never
not
convenient.
They're attacking the flag and the country. And I'm just telling you that when the richest people in a society decide the country they are supposed to be running is corrupt, it falls apart. That's all I'm saying. Why won't you acknowledge that?
This country is corrupt. You'd agree with that. It's an imperfect union, and it's been even more imperfect for black people and brown people.
So does that mean it's fundamentally a rotten place?
White
that's
America
the message they're sending.
Isn't doing their part in fixing and correcting and working with people of color to make this country better.
I'm just wondering, I didn't expect to go down this road with you, but then I didn't know you were going to uncork racist sentiments like that on my show.
Race matters, and it always matters.
But I wonder if you feel, hold on,
racism,
if you feel a little tinge of conscience to make a generalization based on race about an entire group of people you don't know.
What I see, and what others see.
Really?
Let me tell you the real problem.
So I wonder if you were to flip that around, you'd be bounced out of here and out of your job at your fancy law firm in about 10
not
minutes.
At all.
Yeah, because
you're
making
I got
a racial
generalization. I got a First Amendment. I'm not making Let me tell you how I know I'm right. Let me tell you how I know I'm right. People of color live with racism and racial oppression every day in their communities of color.
But it is still a decent country.
Does not. So you can never understand my plight.
White America does not. So I wonder
I've been brutalized by the police. I've been offended by the police.
You're wearing $1,000 cufflinks. Don't give me the victim
Race is the tie that binds us. Economics may separate us, but the police have wrongfully stopped me. They've spread me out in front of my Georgetown home.
You, but you are diverting from the...
But they haven't to you. So you can't relate to it.
So I can't relate to it. Okay. So because I'm white, you're saying that I have no voice in this conversation.
You do.
You are fundamentally unreasonable, and the position you are taking is an inherently racist one, because you are dismissing the position of someone on the basis of his skin color. And that is outside the bounds
because of your experience or your lack thereof.
You know nothing about my experience.
Have the police ever brutalized you? Wrongfully stopped you? Spread you on the ground?
Spare me, Mr. Million-Dollar Lawyer, this talk. I'm trying to... Let me ask you a very simple question.
Okay.
I don't deny, as I've said for 5 times, that this country is flawed. It's deeply flawed on questions of race, obviously, and that police brutality is something that needs to be addressed. I believe that.
And we're not addressing it.
However, you are making a larger case that the country itself is a rotten place. And my point is, for a rich guy like you to say something like that, because you have benefited, as have I, as have lots of people like us from this country, and to dismiss the whole thing and entire portions of the population as immoral is itself like disgusting,
You're putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm listening to what you're saying.
I have not done that at all. What I'm saying is we live in 2 Americas. One black,
you live in
one
my
white.
neighborhood, I bet.
No,
don't give me that.
We live in 2 Americas.
My first car. I'm not going to listen to this garbage.
We live in 2 Americas. One black, one white.
Where do you live?
And until we have a race reconciliation conversation,
I'm from the city.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter. We live in 2 Americas. I bet you send your kids to private school. I bet you live in my neighborhood.
So that doesn't mean I can't be offended by the police?
Of course you can be offended by them.
I'm not racially oppressed. I can't hide my race.
Garbage we live in too. What neighborhood do you live in?
That's why you can't relate to it, because you've never been discriminated against.
What neighborhood do you live in?
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. You said we live in 2 Americas. You live in my neighborhood.
I may live in your neighborhood,
Spare me.
But you've never been racially discriminated against like me.
I'm not. You know what? I've been bullied by people like you before. I'm not going to take it from a guy who lives in my neighborhood.
This is manifest white privilege right here, because you can't relate.
What neighborhood do you live in?
That somehow it's a problem.
What neighborhood do you live in?
What neighborhood do you live in?
I live in Northwest D.C., west of Foxhall Road, and I bet you live there too.
That's a wealthy address.
Not as wealthy as yours.
God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Bolden.
Thank you.
Lou Holtz is a college football coaching legend. He won a title with Notre Dame. Jason Whitlock is a journalist with Fox Sports 1. Jason, that got a little more intense than I expected. So I don't even want to have that conversation. I just want to make the obvious point that while America is deeply flawed, the country itself is good enough that millions of people from around the world want to come here. Most Americans are actually pretty decent. Why is that such a controversial thing to say?
It's not a controversial thing to say. Listen, I think any rational person who understands American history knows we've made some really tragic mistakes in America. And I think if we look around the globe, most countries, most governments, most societies make a lot of mistakes, and people get mistreated. And so that's just a fact of life. That's a fact of the planet's history and will probably remain. America, I happen to believe, happens to handle unfairness better than all of our competitors out there. And so it's very hard for me to ever want to give up on America, demonize America, write off America. I don't want to. I have too many friends, and most of them African American, who are members of the police force. The generalizations about the police are really upsetting to me because I know some very good police officers. And yes, police officers have made mistakes, but I don't want to generalize about them the way I don't want white people generalizing about black people.
Well, I don't want to be just seen like that.
I don't want to be seen as, you know, the worst of black America. And I'm sure police officers, regardless of color, don't want to be seen as the worst of whatever act some individual police officer commits. I got to be honest, Tucker, I listened to that conversation, man. That was painful, man. That was hard because I think it represents the kind of division we have in this country. People are struggling to listen to each other and see the good in each other. I'm just really concerned about this country.
I am too. Coach Holtz, you coached for a long time. How do you think the coaches and the owners are handling this controversy this week?
Well, I think it's a real problem, and the reason is this, that it's a workplace environment. It's just like working with Walmart. You're in a workplace, you have certain obligations to try to please the customers as best you can. I think that there's an awful lot of things that happen in this country, but I want you to know, I've been unfairly ticketed. I was given a ticket when I didn't exceed the speed limit because I was coaching at one school and the patrol officer graduated from the other, and he let me know he was bitter about this. That happens in life. But the thing about it, I don't really know what they're protesting. I never see anybody on TV. I never see anybody on Twitter. I don't see anybody doing an interview and saying, this is the reason I am upset. But it does bother me when you go over to London and you kneel for the national anthem and you stand when they play God Save the Queen. To me, that is really not right. And one other thing along this line, if you aren't protesting the flag, you're picking the wrong thing to do with it. Yeah, if there's something to be done, go do it. But don't do it against this country.
Well, I kind of, Jason, I mean, you know all the players. I know a couple of them are actually smart, well-spoken, have interesting thoughts. I kind of welcome a debate on this stuff, on the details of this stuff. I'm not afraid of that. I might agree with some of it, actually. Why aren't we hearing that? Why aren't we hearing players say, here's what I think, you may not agree, but these are my views?
Because quite honestly, Tucker, I believe most of the players are out beyond their skis. And to get in a real in-depth discussion about this, again, I'm a former college football player. I identify as an athlete. I certainly identify as an African-American. I love being an African-American. I don't think these guys are experts in this cause that they're taking up. And I really think they're outside their role. They're millionaires. They're celebrities. I would love to see them acquire wealth in the National Football League, take that wealth and invest it in the causes that they believe in. Taking on the role as spokesmen and intellectual leaders is not the proper role for 23, 28, 30-year-old football players. And I'm a former football player. I'm not denigrating them. I'm just saying people have different roles. There are people who can focus on this issue 24/7, and this is their life's passion. Getting into this racial discussion and getting into these deep political discussions, it's not a part-time job. It's not something you do in your spare time in between learning a playbook. People are outside their roles. Twitter and social media have baited them. The left-wing media has baited them into doing things that really are outside their roles and outside their area of expertise because, and this is what I believe about the left really, they want black people to take a non-strategic approach to their problems because they don't want us to really address our problems. That's why they're electing football and basketball players to be our leaders. People that can teach us to throw a football and shoot a basketball are our racial leaders. The liberal left is thrilled with this.
So I've still got Scott Bolden here who's shaking his head. He's taking off his glasses. I really quick want to give you a chance to respond to that.
If you have experienced social injustice, if you've been brutalized by the police, I don't care how much money you make, how old you are. If you want to speak out on the issue and you want to take a leadership role, then you ought to do that if you're comfortable doing that. This whole idea that at 23, 24, they can't walk and chew gum at the same time actually makes no
Tucker,
sense.
let me ask you this. Let me ask the man this question.
Okay,
race
Jason,
is a serious, major issue in this country.
Yeah.
So is cancer. If I contract cancer, should I not go to a doctor and someone with expertise, or should I be the leader in addressing the cancer within my body? It sounds good on paper what he's talking about.
There's no better expert. If I've lived with racism and racial oppression in our communities of color, I'm as much an expert as the next guy.
Okay.
All right.
Because I'm telling my story.
We're out of time. I'm being told that. I'm sorry, guys. It was great to see you. Coach Holtz, thank you. Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.